Hello, and welcome to Rebel Shaman. I'm your host, Christian, and today I'd like to share with you how I eat to stay healthy and addiction-free. I spent years searching for the best way for a human being to eat, and I have tried it all. From the time I was first exposed to growing food on a farm, to when I started my workout routines back in 2009 when I went all in on the meat and potatoes. And then my time trying veganism for 2 months, which began with feeling amazing having quit processed foods, ultra processed foods for the first few weeks. But 2 months in, I'm yelling at some guy on the train. And look, he did that thing where you walk in the train as we're all boarding and he stops in front of the doors as if no one is right behind him. Quite a pet peeve of mine at the time, but truly a trivial matter. But I spazzed out nonetheless, and the whole train car looked at me like I'm nuts. So I got out the train and went to the local steakhouse and ate like a king and regained my sanity for a moment in time. Makes me think of all the crazies yelling at folks in the subway. What it is to lack nutrients. I then tried my hand at paleo with some success, but always found my way back to those devilish grains and legumes the paleo circles warned us about. The diet, and more than that, the lifestyle that truly brought it all together for me nutritionally was through the Weston A. Foundation, co-founded in 1999 by Sally Fallon Morrill and nutritionist Mary G. Enig, based on the research of Dr. Weston A. Price, who traveled the world with his wife in the 1930s and 40s, comparing the diets of populations with similar bloodlines, but with the difference that some groups had access to the new shipping routes and railroad lines that brought in the new, denatured, and highly refined foods of the time, refined sugars, flours, jams, and jellies, while the other groups within the bloodlines were still separated from these foods and maintained their traditional wisdom. The results were staggering. The amount of degeneration in the bodies of those eating the processed foods were quite apparent, as within one generation you could see the shrinking jaw lines and bone structures and a rise in diseases in those not receiving enough vitamins, minerals, and other building blocks of the body with their new diets. He began with studying their teeth, as Dr. Price was a dentist and a highly accomplished researcher. However, his research delved beyond decaying teeth and deformed jawlines into the rise of the modern diseases that continue to afflict us today. He also did extensive research into the nutritional content of the foods eaten and which nutrients were missing in the new diets that traditional wisdom never forgot. The 11 principles of eating found on the Weston A. Price Foundation websites are very clear and concise. And why reinvent the wheel? Let's keep the traditional wisdom rolling, baby. I'd like to thank Sally Fallon Morrill and her incredible work at the foundation, as it has been a life-changing resource for me. Check out the Wise Traditions podcast for more information on these amazing principles. Hopefully, after you feast your eyes and ears, your belly will follow. Well, let's dive right into the principles. Principle 1. Avoid all refined and denatured foods. This one is a given, though you might find it surprising that vegetable oils that were touted as healthy for you were awful this whole time. Soy, canola, corn, cottonseed, safflower, and sunflower oils are terrible for us. They're too high in omega-6s. They are highly refined and denatured and must be bleached and deodorized to cover up the smell of rancid fatty acids found in them. These things are teeming with free radicals and toxic breakdown products. They're called vegetable oils to make them seem healthy, but they're just industrial seed oils. So let's lower you down a few pegs, you dastardly food villain. So any products that contain these oils are a no-no. All those ultra-processed cookies, fast food, chips, and margarine, throw it out the window. All right, just throw it out the window. I can't believe it's not butter. Yeah, Fabio. And I cannot believe that jawline was chiseled with anything but the real stuff. Okay, my guy? That looks like some pure raw country butter at work there. These industrially processed oils are found in everything, even salad dressings and mayonnaise and other condiments. Also, avoid artificial sweeteners like aspartame, artificial flavors like MSG, plant-based fake milks and meats as well, because if it ain't got nipples, that ain't milk, son. The big chunk of aisles that compose everything between the perimeter of the supermarket, yeah, all that box stuff, all that canned stuff, no, adios. Most of that stuff is newfangled garbage. I'm talking about all the sugary cereals composed of reconstituted pulverized grains, candy, white flour, and refined sweeteners like corn syrup, fruit juices, ice cream, breads, and pastries. King sugar, a grand stimuli of conquest and colonization, is ever an assailant to our health. It is time to dethrone this usurper of the nutritional throne and only get sugars from natural sources, not some highly refined white crystalline drug. This stuff hits your brain like a speedball, you junkie. These are, as Dr. Price stated, they're the displacing foods of modern commerce, as they fill us with empty calories, displacing the good foods we ought to be eating. Also, watch out for non-organic food sprayed with chemicals such as pesticides and herbicides, and definitely no genetically modified foods. Why tamper with nature when all we need can be found in natural form? Profits, that's why, and control of our food supply, and thus control of us. Best we do not support these nefarious regimes any longer. It is high time we return to nature's laws when we prep our meals. As Weston A. Price, in his remarkable book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, says, my studies of 14 primitive races in various stages of being modernized, together with our newer knowledge of the role of nutrition in human and animal behavior, help us to visualize what is taking place in our modern society. It is most significant that where many primitive racial stocks have succeeded superbly, our modernized civilizations are failing dismally. The primitives have retained excellent bodies through many generations, while many moderns wreck theirs early with degenerative diseases. The explanation, as disclosed by the primitives, is chiefly in our defeating some fundamental processes of life. We disregard our own physical needs, and they are disclosed by our developmental origins. We have used our scientific knowledge largely to change nature's foods and thereby have defeated nature's law of growth and health. The primitives cooperate with nature where we do not. And look, the PC police out there, that's how they spoke back then. Primitives and all that, and racial stocks. He means nothing bad by it. This was back in the 1930s, man. Chill. Principle number 2 from the wise traditions is to include animal foods. For decades, we were told that animal fats, cholesterol, and red meat are bad for us. Nope. It's time for a reprogram. Principle 2 is vital for us to understand. Animal products are awesome for our health. It is ideal to get organic and pasture-raised meats, fish, and milks. However, if it is too pricey, and look, for all the suggestions here that may seem pricey, there are ways to work around this and to design an affordable meal plan. But if you have to start conventional, do what you must. We can build from there. I will cover economic eats very soon. All the traditional diets Dr. Price encountered contain animal products, some living almost exclusively on the meats and milks in their localities. Think Maasai tribe of Tanzania and their cattle, or the Inuits of the far north. And others consumed some meats with their grains and veggies and fruits. According to Sally in her podcast appearance on Wise Traditions with host Hilda Labrada Gore, diets range from 99% animal foods in places like Alaska to 10% in Africa, with animal foods being considered sacred foods in all traditional cultures. Dr. Price found that in these foods were found what he called fat-soluble activators, including a vitamin he discovered, which he called activator X, now we know as vitamin K2. These activators, the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin K2, work together in the body to build strong bones and teeth. They nourish brain function and reproduction. K2 helps put calcium and phosphorus in the bones and teeth, keeping them from depositing in the arteries and soft tissues. He found these traditional diets provided at least 4 times the water-soluble vitamins, calcium, and other minerals, and at least 10 times the fat-soluble vitamins of modern diets. Sorry, vegans, but animal foods provide what the plant cannot. Vitamin B12, vitamin A in its most bioavailable form, retinol, vitamin D, vitamin K2. Animal products also contain complete proteins, not like plant foods that must be mixed to get whole protein, just as we see with rice and beans. Well, Mr. Rebel, Why not just eat rice and beans? Well, Mr. Skeptic, because some amino acids are mostly found in animal foods, such as taurine and glycine. It is also difficult to get enough of the amino acid leucine from plant protein, and leucine is vital for building and maintaining your muscles. Animal products have the highest amount of leucine, so if you want to mix grains with legumes, add some animal protein as well. Also, absorption of aminos is complicated in plant proteins unless special preparations make these more digestible. More on that later. The question of a humane diet comes up quite frequently, especially in the context of going vegan or vegetarian. As stated, certain nutrients are best attained from animal foods, which is why vegans must supplement them. Also, pasture-raised operations do treat animals with respect and dignity, as I have witnessed in my own travels to regenerative farming operations all over the country, where traditions in land rotation and the raising of healthy animals on their native diets are followed. There is a sense of the spiritual there. Families working together with their animals and land to produce the healthiest foods possible. Prayers are made for these animals' sacrifices as well. Spiritually, we connect with the soil, with our ancestors, with nature, the animals, and God in such a way that it is not possible in confined animal feeding operations of the big food industry. If you can support traditional farming, then you contribute to a spiritual form of farming. The issues arise from the maltreatment of animals in conventional farming and the clearing out of the land for monocultures to feed these animals. These monocultures are also used to make vegan fake meats, but nowhere in nature are monocultures just born naturally. Diversity has been nature's game, with different microbial, plant, and animal species working together in an ecosystem that gives back to the land and helps prevent the spread of diseases and pests. Monocultures require artificial fertilizers with no ecosystem to contribute to fertilizers such as compost or animal manure. Monocultures are susceptible to pests and diseases, so chemical warfare is waged over the land to kill anything that is not the crop. So if humane is what you seek, veganism isn't it. Farming done right brings back biodiversity to the land and gives the surplus not used for human consumption back to the land. Also, a humane diet is one that keeps us healthy of mind, body, and spirit. And that is what we find in these principles of eating. So include animal foods, folks. Your body will thank you. Principle number 3, emphasize nutrient-dense foods, such as organ meats, animal fats, eggs, raw dairy, shellfish, fish liver oils, and fish eggs. Careful with which kind of fish oils you're buying. It's cod liver oil is the best. Okay, the processing is different, and Carlson's is my favorite brand, and you can get the one with vitamin A and D included. When it comes to your organ meats, pasture raised is always best. Pasture raised organs are usually, I find that the price isn't too crazy, and you can find them at farmers markets or even find a farm that can deliver to you. Organ meats are power foods, and they're relatively cheap in today's economy compared with the conventional meats found in the supermarkets. Pasture-raised raw butter is a must for fat-soluble vitamins and contains a proper ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Yes, butter is healthy, folks. A healthy meal plan actually tastes great. Now we jump right into principle 4. Eat some animal food raw and cook most plant foods, because vegetables evolved to also stand their grounds. Well, they're rooted to the ground, but they can't fight back with limbs, so they have been endowed with toxins they produce that gives them the evolutionary advantage that no animal can eat too much of one plant without negative consequences, keeping the species alive by irritating the guts of herbivorous or omnivorous animals and ensuring enough will survive to perpetuate the species. Some plant toxins include oxalates found in spinach and other dark leafy greens, and it can actually downregulate the function of your thyroid gland if it's eaten in excess. Oxalates can also bind to calcium, and eaten in excess can cause kidney stones. When it comes down to the grains and the legumes, we'll get to that section quite soon. All the cultures that Dr. Price studied ate some of their animal foods raw. So do like I do sometimes and eat some raw beef liver. But make sure it's pasture raised. Don't eat that conventional raised cattle liver raw that you see in the supermarket. That's all blood clotted and dull dead gray. It's got to have some deep dark color. Maybe a raw pasture raised egg yolk here and there. Never a conventional egg, because those are the ones associated with salmonella poisoning, despite the fear mongering lumping all animal products together. Pasture raised and conventional are not created equal. For raw animal foods, I always recommend raw milk. You can find some near you at realmilk.com. Despite all the fear mongering from the so called experts, including the FDA, raw milk is perfectly safe and healthy. Unpasteurized milk from pasture raised cows contain antimicrobial properties and good bacteria to help with digestion. Principle number 5 states, eat lacto-fermented condiments and beverages. I constantly keep a jar of sauerkraut in my fridge to keep my gut healthy and happy and free of disease. Beneficial gut bacteria convert sugars in food to lactic acid, a process called lactofermentation. Fermentation is an ancient process used for preserving foods. But Mr. Rebel Guy, I hate the taste of fermented foods. Can't I just take a probiotic supplement? Hey, look, if that's how you need to start, that's fine. And sometimes it is a good jump start for the gut. However, fermented foods give you added benefits. So a transition to the traditional is key. Plus, our ancestors did not mosey on up to their local vitamin shops and buy their probiotics. And plus, what's going to happen when all the lights go out one day? And it is best to be self-sufficient now, folks. Start to learn to be self-sufficient now. Fermented drinks and foods contain vitamins and minerals as well as enzymes that assist you in digestion, saving you some of your own body's energy expenditure. 10 to 30% of total energy can go into digestion, so a body with plenty of beneficial bacteria is truly an energy efficient machine. Beneficial bacteria also create an environment in your gut that keeps other microorganisms that can be harmful for us at bay. Plus, you also can't beat the price of making your own sauerkraut, beet kvass, or other ferments at home. Compared to probiotic pills, you save plenty of money, get more for your buck, and ferments contain more diversity in beneficial bacteria than supplements. Principle number 6 states, prepare seeds, grains, and nuts properly to minimize anti-nutrients and enhance digestibility. This concept blows most people's minds, or their eyes glaze over as they think of glazed donuts or something. Truth is, traditional cultures prepared all their seeds, grains, and nuts in order to make them healthier for their bodies. You see, in nature, any seed will be stingy with their nutrients, at least until they find the right environment, usually dark and moist, lovely soil to sprout and grow. Only then can the seed release its stored nutrients to allow it to sprout. Now, a reminder, grains, nuts, and legumes are seeds too. Until these seeds find a suitable environment to sprout, these little molecules, which are like an octopus with 8 limbs, hang on to all the minerals present in the seeds. These are called phytic acid, and they can decrease your absorption of iron, zinc, magnesium, and calcium. They can even interact and decrease bioavailability of proteins. Soaking, sprouting, and fermenting seeds, grains, and nuts can reduce anti-nutrients significantly and liberate the nutrients we seek from those foods. Breads were traditionally made by fermenting the dough for days at a time. And that was the whole grain that they used, not just the nutrient-devoid white flour we find in most bread now. Principle 7, enjoy saturated fats and avoid industrial seed oils. This principle also blows people's minds more often than not. I mean, people still shop for fat-free foods. That was some mighty propaganda fed to us, pun totally intended, back when animal fats were demonized through propaganda paid for by the sugar and grain industry. The industrial seed oil companies make a killing, both literally and figuratively, off this false info, touting their version of toxic fats as healthy and spreading lies about the role of saturated fats in cardiovascular disease. So soy, canola, corn, and cottonseed flour, these so-called vegetable oils are terrible for us. Aside from the nasty way these oils are produced using chemicals to extract them, such as hexane and deodorizers to keep their rancidity hidden, as these oils become denatured easily, and they're they're also chock full of omega-6s. Well, Mr. Rebel, isn't omega-6 good for us? Not when it's eaten in disproportion to omega-3s. A ratio of 3 to 1 is generally considered healthy, though some say 2 to 1 or 1 to 1 ratios are best. Industrial seed oils contain omega-6 to omega-3 ratios of 20 to 1, which makes them inflammatory to the body. Remember, your cell membranes contain both fatty acids, and the rigidity of omega-6 is supposed to balance with the fluidity of omega-3, creating the right balance for your cells to communicate with their surroundings, influencing the structure and function of proteins embedded in the membrane, including enzymes, receptors, and ion channels. Saturated fats were highly regarded by our ancestors. Yes, I said it, and it is true. They didn't deal with the toxic seed oils and the trans fats created when seed oils are made into margarine or other fake fat food that must maintain appearances and seem like a solid fat in room temperature. Margarine and Crisco, which still claim to be healthy for you on their websites and packaging, are actually an industrially created unnatural saturated fat. So the folks that demonize natural saturated fats sell us unnatural saturated fats. Say what? There would be some sort of punchline there were it not such a wicked revelation. Yeah, and for the newer generation, trans fats are fat, not a protein that is identifying as a fat. I bring this up because I firmly believe that the confusion of genders is deeper than just ideology or a mind virus, as many commenters on the subject vehemently announce. It surely is reinforced by such things. However, after generations of eating foods that are incompatible with our bodies, our hormones and neurochemicals are so depleted that they contribute to this confusion. I want to make a happy-go-lucky channel that's not divisive. However, I realize when speaking truth is divisive, it means we're at the brink of complete tyrannical control. So fuck that. If that hurt your feelings, you might need to try this meal plan. Well, this lifestyle. And then tell me how you feel. Can't knock it till you try it, right? And I wouldn't be a rebel without, bringing up some of this stuff, I guess. But I mean, speaking truth makes you a rebel, as I say, and unfortunately, the deficiencies caused by our standard American diet, by the corporatocracies, by the corporate oligarchs and the politicians in their pocket, and the manipulations of the public as to what they should eat, and the scam food pyramid of the 90s, and all the corruption that we've seen with the food system. It leaves us deficient, it leaves us depleted, and that void that we have inside is conveniently filled with ideologies that keep us angry at each other, divided, and so many times I hear commentators, and mostly on the right, going after the trans folks and all these folks, and I mean, it's a back and forth. You see a lot of this, you act this way, it's not right. You act this way, it's not right. But you're not offering a real solution. We're not talking about all the variables involved here. I think of a lot of the time, all this stuff is just a stage, and a lot of these folks are just they're just there to confuse the truths about certain things. And for me, the eating in this traditional way is a fundamental truth of life. When you see folks heal from the diseases they suffer with their whole lives by altering their diet, by reaching back to their ancestral roots and preparing foods a certain way and eating only certain foods, and then they heal, it's no coincidence. And yelling at people and going after them for a belief that they were manipulated into having, it's not conducive to healing. I mean, I want to show empathy. I want to show understanding, and I don't hold hate in my heart for anyone, But there's certain things that you haven't tried everything, right? It's you want to lop off parts of yourself and stick hormones in your body. It's a lot more extreme than just learning to eat this way and then seeing how you feel. Give it some time. I always promote that. I don't promote hate, okay? But naysayers can always cut out 8-second sound bites and make me sound like an asshole. And that's fine. Do what you have to. Haters will hate. Well, now back to the reprogram. Another interesting fact is that half of the fat in mother's milk is saturated fat. If nature deemed it good for baby, what you telling me? Saturated fats are not bad for your heart. They're actually heart protective. They reduce LPA in the blood, which is a harmful substance that kicks off atherosclerosis in blood vessels. They reduce calcium deposits in arteries and are the preferred source of energy for the heart muscle. Saturated fats, yeah, I know, it's crazy. Check out the GAPS diet for information on that. Principle number 8, consume animal foods from the land and sea to balance omega-6 and omega-3s. Omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids are polyunsaturated fats because they have many double bonds, and the body can't produce them as we lack the necessary enzymes. This means that we have to get them from our diets. This is why they're considered essential fatty acids. According to a study from Missouri Medicine, the increase in omega-6-3 ratio, remember from the seed oils, in our diet over the last 100 years has paralleled the rise in numerous autoimmune, inflammatory, and allergic diseases. And even though omega-3s are higher in grass-fed meats, if you're skipping out on the organ meats, then you definitely should add some fatty fish to your diet. I find that folks do better with at least 2 servings a week of some fatty fish, some mackerel, some salmon, some sardines. And animal fats are a great source of omega-6s, especially for the omega-6 arachidonic acid, which can be difficult to get enough of. And there is a debate as to how much omega-3 is in the pasture-raised meat, if it's enough, and all of this. I would say to err on the side of caution and just have those servings of fish, or at the very least, have enough cod liver oil, maybe an extra teaspoon or 2 throughout the week, aside from your daily dose, just to make up the difference. Because I do know some people who find fish to be quite awful. They just can't do it. No matter how well it might be prepared. And we all have to start our journey somewhere. So let's not be dissuaded from certain things that if you're not capable of doing it at the moment, well, it is what it is. But you're capable of some of these things here. And I have not taken bacon off the menu. Okay? So there's that. For those that don't eat bacon, sorry to hear. But butter is still on the table. Now, principle number 9 is use unrefined salt liberally. Unrefined salt has shaped human history and civilization. It is so vital for our health, dictating trade routes and even being used by the Roman Empire to pay its soldiers, which explains the word salary from the Latin salarum. Ever seen the Ethiopian trade routes for the white gold of the Nakli Desert? One of the most treacherous and hottest terrains on the planet due to volcanic activity, yet thousands of families navigate the terrain in order to sell the precious salt they mine. Temperatures can climb to 122 degrees here, and workers have died from the heat. But this is a prime example of the power and value that salt has had since time immemorial. Unrefined salt like Himalayan pink salt and Celtic sea salt contain the minerals vital for life, such as potassium, calcium, magnesium, copper, zinc, manganese, selenium, and are meant to work with the sodium chloride it contains to replenish our electrolytes and maintain fluid balance in the body. Excess sodium chloride, with none of its natural counterparts, your conventional highly refined table salt, creates water retention in the body and creates acidic buildup in the body, leading to gall and kidney stones. So make sure your salt is unrefined. The high sodium fear instilled in the public all these years is misguided. The problem comes from refined table salt and the high sodium content in processed foods. The body needs sodium, but it requires the right ratio with potassium to work appropriately in the body, and eliminating highly processed foods will eliminate the dangers of excess sodium. A search on this topic is remarkable. The preponderance of research I found does not speak about unrefined salt, just regular table salt. And if they speak of potassium sodium ratios, it's in the context of a standard American diet. That abysmal diet that creates 95% of diseases. Most diseases are preventable, people. They're preventable. So the house of most research is built on quickly sinking land. According to the Craving Cure by Julia Ross, the ratio of sodium to potassium must be 4-1. Once you eliminate highly processed foods and replace the refined salt for unrefined salt, the dangers of sodium affecting blood pressure go away. Interestingly enough, it is no salt diets that are actually linked to higher incidences of heart disease. I mean, why would God be so cruel to give us taste buds for the salty if the natural need for it did not exist? Preposterous. Principle 10. Include gelatinous bone broth in soups, stews, gravy, and sauces. Bone broth is the bomb, yo. And I'm talking about the real stuff. Real broth is simmered for many hours, not most of the BS sold as broth with MSG added to it. I would say bone broth is an absolute game changer. However, studying how traditional cultures ate, we modern folks changed the game by excluding broth from our diets. Bone broth, the real stuff simmered for up to 24 to 48 hours, is a powerhouse of gut healing nutrition. It contains the minerals of bones, cartilage, and marrow in an easily assimilable form. In broth, you find glucosamine and chondroitin, key building blocks of cartilage. Gelatinous broth contains plenty of collagen, the most abundant protein found in the body. 30% of the proteins in your body are in fact collagen. Talk about a major building block, man. Collagen holds us together from our bones, tendons, joints, skin, organs, and lines our intestinal tract. The ancients knew this. They used to crack the bones of their prey to eat the marrow. They did this to get the same lovely nutrients we can get from bone broth today. You can even buy a clay pot slow cooker and make your own from the bones, feet, and heads of pasture-raised animals. It comes out way cheaper than buying it in stores. And if you're a dude like me living in the city, at least for now, you can get these broth ingredients from farm deliveries and farmers markets. If the idea of doing it yourself makes you a little squeamish, buy it from your local organic markets. At least until you build up the courage to do it yourself. It's time we really connect with our roots, folks. And the digestive system is the root of our body in many ways, extracting precious nutrients from our foods. For far too long, too many of us have lost our connection to the land and real food. Hurry, before Bill Gates or the Chinese buy it all up. Principle 11, emphasize nutrient-dense foods before pregnancy and for growing babies. As quoted from Dr. Weston A. Price's extraordinary book, Nutritional and Physical Degeneration, Dr. Price said, the lessons from the primitive races demonstrate certain procedures that should be adopted for checking the progressive degeneration of our modernized cultures. If, as now seems indicated, maldevelopment with its production of physical, mental, and moral cripples is the result of forces that could have been reduced or prevented, by what program shall we proceed to accomplish this reduction or prevention? I have presumed in this discussion that the primitive races are able to provide us with valuable information. In the first place, the primitive peoples have carried out programs that will produce physically excellent babies. This they have achieved by a system of carefully planned nutritional programs for mothers to be. Now, one example of many, to paraphrase Weston A. Price, is of the Maasai tribe in certain parts of Tanzania and Kenya, where girls were required to wait for marriage until the time of year when the cows were grazed on rapidly growing grass. They were then given the milk from these cows for a certain number of months before they could marry. This tribe, by the way, still lives almost entirely off the milk, meat, and blood of their cattle. and they are robust and healthy despite all the garbage we hear about animal foods being unhealthy. Pasture raised, baby. These so-called primitive folk sure knew a lot more than we do about health and well-being, for us being so modernized, right? They had no need for prenatal vitamins, giving mothers sacred and special foods like gelatinous soups, fish, eggs, grass-fed butter, raw milk, organ meats, etc. All foods chock full of fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, and K2. Traditional cultures also spaced out the birth of their children for years at a time to allow the mother's nutritional reserves to build back up in order to continue to produce the most robust and healthy children possible. Look at the way we rear kids with no true experts to guide the way. Instead, we get conventional advice, the conventional, hey, take this prenatal, get this prenatal and get some prenatals and a sonogram and you're fine. And oh, and eat spinach, folate for folate. Devil may care about the oxalates and fat soluble vitamins. Just make sure mama gets her ice cream when she's craving it. While desperately locked in the cage of the standard American diet, her primordial self is screaming for a plate of traditional foods, for broth, kraut, organ meats, raw milk, and raw butter. Not that Haagen-Dazs, man. Though I give the mama of the house some farm fresh raw ice cream made from some amazing ingredients. Okay, you can have your treats, but those treats better treat you good. They better treat you good too. And look, folks, this kind of eating, in all of these principles, give you the raw materials to build up the structures of your body. Of course, most folks are sick and feeling all sorts of mood disorders. Most folks eat mostly nutritionally devoid foods and violate the laws of nature. This may be a lot to take in, especially for those uninitiated in this traditional wisdom. It is vital that we connect with our roots. It's okay to start small, make small changes here and there, and build your way up to true health and well-being. We owe it to the future generations to preserve this knowledge and to rebuild our bloodlines, which have been tainted for far too long, diluted and devoid of good nutrition. It's okay. It's okay to have progress technologically speaking. However, the leaves would forever die without the nourishment of the roots. And our guts, like the root of the soil, require the right nourishment to make us, to make our children and their children robust, healthy, happy, and free. And look, I'm so grateful for all of you to be here. You want the sources for all this material, you can check the links down below and check out the website, check out all the great things that are coming your way. And let's keep growing this community together. May God prosper you all.